As a private land planner and a boundary surveyor, I'm often asked by clients to give informal advice about the value of real estate and its existing condition, and sometimes potentially in other conditions, so if it's subdivided or developed. We always recommend that our clients work with a professional appraiser, real estate appraiser, to get those questions answered. But sometimes the client's early on in the process and they're just trying to get some ballpark numbers, and so they'll ask us, some questions, and we'll run some napkin math sometimes. Try and help them, get an idea if they have a project that might potentially pencil. And so we do that. One common area of misunderstanding we have with clients, especially clients that aren't sophisticated or experienced developers, is just the understanding of how what I call productive land is priced differently from parcels that are primarily used as building sites. And there's major differences in how those two types of real estate parcels are valued. And that's important for me, especially because it sometimes will change when it makes sense to pay for a survey and when it doesn't. Surveys are expensive. So depending on how much the land is worth, a survey may be worth the cost, it may not be worth the cost. So if you're going to be a commercial real estate professional, you really need to understand the differences. So let's talk about the differences between those two. So productive land versus building sites. Okay, so productive land is land that's primarily used to provide products, where the amount produced or provided is strongly correlated to the area of the parcel. Okay, so I have some examples here. In Central California, we have ranching, nut tree orchards, row crops like asparagus and tomatoes, solar energy sites. So in all of those situations, the amount produced by the land is primarily driven by the size of the parcel, right? All other things being equal. Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't other things that matter, like the type of soil and the availability of the water and access to transportation routes. Those other things are important, but they're not typically gonna double or triple the amount produced, right? So the biggest constraint, or the most important constraint in the amount produced with productive land, is going to be the size of the parcels that are involved. Now, it's different for land that are buildings, real estate that is its values primarily as a building site. So a parcel that's a building site is its primary value is to host a building, right? It could be a commercial building, could be a single family home, could be an apartment building, and that is especially true when you're in an area where land use is heavily regulated, like I am in Central California here. Land use is heavily regulated, and so in a lot of situations you can only put one building on a parcel, and so the increasing the size of that parcel but not increasing the number of allowed buildings isn't going to have a significant impact on the value. It's not going to drastically increase the value. Okay, so when determining the value of productive land, like I said, area is going to be the most important factor, right? And then we're really talking about usable area, right? So I have a couple examples for you. A 120-acre cattle ranch in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains here in Central California will typically be worth 3 times the amount of a 40-acre cattle ranch, and all of the things being equal. So 3 times the land area means you can run 3 times the head of cattle, so the ranch is going to be, if it's 3 times as big, it'll be worth 3 times as much, as a general rule, okay? Another example, this actually came up. This came up with a potential client of ours a couple years ago. So he had, if you have an orchard site, a nut tree orchard parcel that's 40% covered by vernal pools, so those are special kind of protected pool, seasonal pool we have. You can't disturb them, you can't grow trees on them. That's going to be worth 60% as much as an orchard site of the same size with no vernal pools, right? So how many trees can you get per acre? How many acres is the parcel? You can run that math and figure out, roughly what is that land going to be worth given the amount of trees that you can put on it. So as I mentioned, there's some other factors that could potentially impact the value of productive land, access to water, quality of the soil, that kind of thing. As a general rule, if you've got productive land and your parcel's twice as big as the one next door, it's going to be worth twice as much, as a general rule. Okay, now, building sites are different, right? So building sites are not that way. So when you're planning a land development project, what you typically want to do is maximize the number of lots or building sites, okay, or units if you're dealing with apartments, Okay, so you're not in that case trying to increase the size of the parcels, you're trying to increase the density, right? Because that's where the value really is. So I have a couple examples. So let's say you have a parcel you want to subdivide. If you can get 20 lots, single family home lots that are half an acre each, that is going to be worth way more than 10 single family home lots that are an acre each. In other words, the single family home is worth way more than the extra half an acre of yard, right? So you want to try and maximize the number of building sites. Okay, that's the opposite of productive land, where what really matters, a 1 acre of productive land is worth twice as much as half an acre, right? But that's different. It's different when you're dealing with real estate that are building sites. So here's another example. A 20-acre ranchette with a single home won't be worth twice as much as a 10-acre ranchette with a single home, right? You're better off having two 10-acre ranchettes, each with a home, than you are one 20-acre ranchette with a single home. The extra 10 acres of yard is not going to be the same value as the extra home, right? The extra building site. So why is this important? If you're going to be in commercial real estate, you need to understand the different ways that land provides value. I've just given you a couple examples, right? Productive land, typically for agriculture, but could be for something like solar energy, and then land that's primarily useful as a building site. There are other things, right? You could have land that's valued for recreation and conservation, other different types of things, but those are the two types that we talked about in this video. So remember, for productive land, area is going to be critical. If it's high value productive land like nut trees or vineyards, it's easier to justify the cost of an accurate survey, right? Because an acre difference or 5 acres difference on a 2 or 3 or 400 or 1,000 acre parcel is going to make a difference in the value, right? If you're paying for land by the acre, you want to make sure you have a good survey. And then for building sites, the understanding the land use regulations and the design constraints that apply to the parcel are going to probably be more important than the exact square footage of the parcel, right? What you want to know is what can you build on it, how dense can you build, right? So, and that may still require a survey or a private land planner to help you with that, but you're going to be looking at different things. So remember, productive land is not priced the same way as building sites. And so if you're in real estate, you need to understand, anytime you're talking about the value of land, what type of land you're dealing with. Is it productive land? Is it land that's going to be primarily used for a building site? Or is it some different kind of land? Because those different types of land are priced differently.